This has gotta be the most ridiculous case Gibson has ever made. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. Hey, we got another Billie Joe signature guitar to talk about today. That's right, the Green Day frontman. We'll talk all about his previous signature models today, as well as do a full in-depth review and documentation of his brand new 2023 version, which has some very unique attributes to it. But first, let's grab our first impressions. That's right, we've got a giant pink chainsaw case. Oh man, this is crazy. Which, in case you missed it, Gibson reissued the Gen 3 chainsaw case essentially with TSA latches about a year or so ago. And since it's just a molded plastic case, they can technically make these any color they want. But it's not just that it's a giant pink case. It's the fact that we have the return of the leopard print interior on top of having these cool new colors of the Billie Joe Jr. This interior is really in your face, and I am loving this silver sparkle finish. This literally is love at first sight. I mean, if you're looking for a cool Les Paul Jr., so far this is really living up to the expectations. But before we get too far in depth with this new one, let's learn about what models came before this within the Billie Joe signature lineup. He first got a signature guitar back in 2006, and that was a pretty long-standing run. It wasn't until 2012 until it was officially discontinued. Now, that version was based off his 56 Les Paul Jr. that he named Floyd, and those are really excellent guitars, because before the original collection came out in 2019, you really couldn't get a traditionally spec'd Les Paul Jr. outside of the custom shop, whereas a normal Gibson USA Jr. was like a Les Paul Studio. It was a nice step up. But those things featured a P90H pickup that had a humless design. Now, unfortunately, a lot of people don't like those pickups, so on the used market, it's very common to see regular P90s get swapped in. And perhaps the most memorable thing about those is the fact that we had a black case that had the leopard print interior. Those things are very desirable. The original lineup was offered in black, white, and sunburst finishes. But then he's also had signature ES137s, which is kind of a cool red semi-hollow guitar that has dual P90 pickups. I would like to review one of those one day. Still haven't found a good enough of a deal. But then in 2012, they had a double cut Junior, which is by far the rarest Billie Joe signature model, and they came stock with Gibson gig bags that had the cool leopard print interior. Next up, he had a J180 acoustic guitar. If you're looking for something to cover Green Day songs on, that's not an electric. And then in 2018, they decided to reissue the Junior, but they changed everything up. It had a 57 classic humbucker in the bridge, and a brand new pickguard design that was essentially based on a DC Les Paul Special, except for we don't have the cutouts for the P90s. And on top of that, you had some pastel colors like Sonic Blue, Maraschino Cherry, and Black. But I remember people throwing a fit about those things costing $1,399. Just wait till I tell you the price of these things. But before we get into that, they also had an Epiphone Les Paul Jr. in white that just recently came out about a year or so ago, and it also had a leopard print interior case. So here we are, 2023, we finally get this one, and how much is it? It is $2,199. It is very expensive for a Les Paul Jr., but I wanted to document it anyways because it's got some unique elements to it. The first one being, we get two different finish options. So the most unique one, in my opinion, is this nice silver mist. He is known for using a silver sparkle Les Paul Jr. on stage, and this is the first official time that you could get it from Gibson. But hey, if silver's not your thing, they also came out with a more traditional ebony finish. However, this one is called Vintage Ebony Gloss. I wasn't excited for this one until I saw this photo on Gibson's Instagram page. It's actually a semi-translucent black finish, where you can see the wood grain, but in person, honestly, I'm a little bit let down. I was kind of hoping mine would be like that other photo, where it was very apparent, but I'm betting you just have to take this thing out into the sun to make it unique. But that's what I liked about this finish was, it's the same, but a little bit different. But I'm going to continue the review and demo with this one, because I like it the best. But what makes these things $600 more expensive than an original collection Les Paul Jr.? Well, besides the color, it comes down to the Billie Joe signature neck profile. If you love Juniors, but you always wish it had a slightly skinnier neck, you are going to like these. But what really made me excited about this review and demo is this is a brand new pickup for Gibson. They call this one the P90 DC. It's another humless P90, which in the past, we had the P90H, which was in the initial run, which as we learned earlier, didn't get rave reviews from people looking for traditional Les Paul Juniors anyway. And then Gibson has also toyed with something called the P90S, which was the Sidewinder. You can find that on like the Les Paul Futura. So we'll have to find out today whether this new version actually maintains the P90 growl and grit while getting rid of the hum. But besides the neck profile, the pickup, the unique finish, and the unique case, I mean, it's not all that different. So if that doesn't sound appealing to you, you're not missing out on much. But let's check out our case candy here. Looks like all the standard stuff. Gibson basic strap, a crumpled up baby photo with a pre-packed checklist, our Gibson multi-tool with owner's manual and polishing cloth, and lastly some case keys. And if the pink on the outside wasn't enough, your lid ribbons are also done up in pink to complete the motif. And if you lift up the case compartment, of course, you've got the pink Gibson logo. Now, just as a forewarning, if you love this case and you want to put a regular Les Paul in it, I noticed taking it out, it's definitely special form fit for a junior. So I do not believe this is going to fit, but let's test that here for you. So far, it's looking pretty good. However, when you go to shut it, you're definitely going to have to compress it a little bit more. So the answer is yes, but I don't know if I would necessarily recommend it. The foam interior of these cases are very rigid, and to be honest, there's not too much. I think you would just be asking for troubles in the long run. If you got a big bang to the outside, you'll probably end up breaking your switch tip or something. So play case swapperoonie at your own risk. As far as first impressions go, this is a really nice gloss finish. It has that typical, you can see the mahogany wood grain going on through it because they don't do any grain fill like that. So if you know to expect that going into it, it almost has a cool TV silver-like finish. It's really lightweight, and that neck profile was instantly recognizable as 60s slim. It's nice having a full gloss without any of that VOS stuff on of a Gibson guitar, to be honest. But it's got that vintage shelf construction, so it is more so akin to a 50s style. However, I don't know, something about the original Billie Joe run still seems a little bit higher quality than this, but we'll have to run this thing through its paces before I do a full judgment. So let's go ahead and throw this one onto the workbench to take an individual look at its parts and specs. Inside our new Junior, let's discover its secrets. So first off, there's nothing underneath our pick guard, so if you wanted to take it off, you'd just be left with these 3 screw holes. Why you'd want to do that, I'm not sure. But there are a few different ways you can get rid of the hum of a P90, and another cool one is what we saw on the Brian Ray SG, and you can also find it on the Blues Hawk series. There's a dummy coil, sometimes hidden underneath the pick guard, or they route it out on the back, so it essentially doubles up the coils so you can get a humbucker, which is something they could have got away with on this model, but no, they decided to do the new Sidewinder technique. So a normal pickup looks like this. It's a humbucker, which is similar to having 2 single coils just at the same time. So each of these coils has wire wrapped around it, going this way, and then the pole pieces are facing up. The Sidewinder basically takes those coils on their side and then puts 2 of them side by side. So instead of this, they're facing the opposite direction. So that is what you're seeing here, the 2 coils on their sides. But yet somehow they can still use the pole pieces in the middle. I'm not exactly a pickup expert, but that's what these Sidewinders are. But what's cool about that, the old P90Hs, they just stacked it on top of each other, as well as the P100 series pickups. So by doing the whole Sidewinder technique, it just looks like a regular P90 if you don't know what you're really looking for. Like those P100s stand out like a sore thumb because they're twice as big. So I'm really excited to see if this one sounds any good. But here's the back. We got an extra tone screw on this. Hooray! But it just reads lead P90 DC dog ear. As far as the reading of our Sidewinder, it is 8.63k ohms. I'm actually surprised. I thought it would read twice as hot as a normal P90, so maybe that's a good thing. But here's what our cavity rat looks like, nice and clean. And for future reference, here's what the pickup cover should look like. It's just black plastic. And we just have a regular wrap tail piece. You don't have any intonation lightning strike. It's lightweight aluminum and made by Advanced Plating Incorporated. The pickguard for the silver version is 5-ply black, so that means you have 2 layers of white in between the 3 layers of black. But in case you didn't realize what made the black one look so different, it gets a faux tortoiseshell, which matched with the fretboard on that one looks really cool. These guards do come stock with the factory with a plastic film over top of them, but you just have a master volume and a master tone. Now let's take a look at this body. I already told you how you can see the mahogany wood grain through it, which, if you're expecting it, is great. However, I could see how some guys would go, I wish they would have did the grain fill. But let's be real here, Gibson has never done that as their standard operation ever. And I was saying silver sparkle earlier. That's not the correct term. It's just more of a metallic paint. It's not sparkly in your face by any means. But this is a straight up mahogany body, and I'll have a little bit more to say on that here in a second. But it's a mahogany neck with our rosewood board looking quite nice. You've got your acrylic dot inlays, 22 medium jumbo style frets, 24 3/4 inch scale length, 12 inch fretboard radius, with a nut width of 1.67, which increases to 2.08 by the 12th. But here's where you can see how skinny it is, 0.83 first fret neck depth, and wow, 0.91 by the 12th. Here's that neck profile at the 1st fret and the 12th fret. I've gotten so used to all my juniors having big, thick neck profiles, this is really jarring to pick up. So if you like big necks, you might want to pass on these. That's your standard Graphtec nut. Here's our truss rod. Everything's looking good on that one. And the cover has a silk screened Billie Joe over top of it. It's the same one as on his other signatures. Then we can see the Les Paul Jr. silk screen with our Gibson silk screen logo. The headstock isn't necessarily too fancy. Pretty basic. And now the backside of the guitar, I found a few things that disappointed me. So we know it's a signature model, it's got a unique finish and a couple of other cool attributes that make it worth the premium that they're asking. However, I thought for sure these would be either a 1 or 2 piece body at this price point, but it's actually 3 pieces. And you can see that due to the visible wood grain that the lacquer kind of sinks into. So you got one distinct piece up here, and then you have like a center stripe that has very, very tight wood grain right there. And then you have one that has very wavy grain over here. Now, when you get this outside in natural sunlight, that's when it first caught my attention. Take a look at yours if you bought one. I'd be curious how many pieces yours is made out of. But it looks like we got our regular Gibson pots, the signature of It actually seems to be a few signatures in there, but it's nice to be able to see the mahogany color. And then your other Gibson pot down here. And then your output jack is over here on the side. But the fit and finish on this, I'm actually really impressed. It feels nice and even. You might be able to see the wood grain, but that is flush. And it's really glossy. It feels like a super fast neck. So just like the rest of the body, you can see the wood grain on the neck. And if you look right here, you can kind of see what looks like bumps or lumps. I don't feel those, but they are a little bit cosmetically apparent at this particular lighting angle. So maybe the finish got a little bit bunched up in those areas. But since we have a signature on the truss rod cover, you don't need anything on the back of the headstock. And these utilize the individual tuner. So it's not like his first run that got the vintage style. So we lose some coolness points, in my opinion. But then we have our 2022 serial number here. Even though it's a 2023 model, these were made up in advance and then released. On the 209th day of the year, initial batch, production number 12 for that day. Made in USA. And then I was very disappointed to see this at the top of the headstock. I bought this brand new from a well-respected dealer, and unfortunately there's apparently a chip from the factory. Now, to be fair, I didn't notice this until I ever put it on a stand, and who's to say it didn't get dinged up at the dealer? So, I mean, do we blame Gibson for that? Do we blame dealership? I don't know. I'm just presenting the facts as I got this. So after finding those blemishes, I thought I would take a look at the black one as well. I did find one small overly buffed area on the neck shelf that shows the bare mahogany. The finish also had a lot more polishing scratches than I'm used to on a brand new guitar. So it seems this color is extra susceptible to light blemishes, as ebony finishes typically are. Moving up the neck, I captured the finish in a very good way that you can still see the wood grain, but when I got to the headstock, I'm not entirely sure what happened here. Some areas are just completely black, and then the other ones are the more transparent. It's like the finish didn't quite get evenly applied to this particular one in this area. All said and done, it weighs 7 pounds, 1.2 ounces. Let's go ahead, plug it in, and hear how this new pickup sounds. Straight on with volumes and tones at 10, it's kind of overly bright sounding. Don't really like it that much, but then you roll the tone down to about 7 or 8, and it just kind of comes to life. Like, it's still bright and spanky, but it's almost like they overcompensated it so it's like too bright. That's my first impressions. I'm sure once we kick some distortion on, it might come to life even more. That might sound like a bunch of noise to you, but I was testing how dynamic this pickup is, and it's very dynamic. So if you're hitting hard, it sounds like this. And not touching anything, just picking a little softer. But so far, I'm not a huge fan of this new P90. I mean, it does get rid of the hum, though, and that's what it's intended to do. I mean, when you're playing a giant stage, you don't necessarily want to have the 60-cycle hum, so there's always going to be trade-offs associated with it. But it is good that we can tame it back. But I want to try it against a real P90 here. we go. There's the new comparison between the humless P90 and a traditional P90. Now keep in mind that Les Paul Standard was from the early 2000s, so yeah, there's a little bit of age, there's a maple top, there are some other differences going on there, but I think you get the idea. I personally still prefer a regular P90, but that's just, what I come to expect. I will say that this pickup is way more dynamic than a regular P90 though. Like, it has so many in-betweens, so a very nuanced player could probably get a lot of different tones out of this single pickup. And you can do that normally, but I'm just saying, just by the touch of your hand, it's more tones than you can get just out of a regular pickup. Now obviously this is a signature guitar built for Billie's specs. He needs the humless P90, so I'm not saying it's a bad pickup, it's just I think most people are still going to prefer the regular P90 if they're not gigging on stage and don't have to worry about 60 cycle hum ruining their show. But overall, now that I finally played this, I still prefer the original run. I think they're just a little bit better. Small things like the vintage spec'd out tuners and just the way they feel. So unless you really need a thin neck junior and you like everything that this is spec'd out as, I would just say leave this one to the collectors and the Billie Joe fans. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed my independent review of the Billie Joe Armstrong Signature Junior for 2023. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will catch you guys tomorrow on the next episode. Take care. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, consider subscribing. I post videos like this every day, and you might even enjoy this next one.